Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, here I represent my group. So let me introduce myself and my group members. We are from Yogyakarta State University students majoring in English Literature 2019. Here we make a video conducting seminar for completing our public academic speaking assignment with our theme How to Build an Atmosphere in Our Story. So our group members are, the first one is Fitri Wahyuni as a moderator and the first speakers who will discuss the meaning of prose and the intrinsic element. Number 2 is Devi Fajar Hidayah as the second speaker who will discuss settings in prose work. Number 3 is Leni Nursinta as a speaker with her material How Diction Can Affect Prose. And the last one, Fitri Nurfatimah, is the last speaker with the material How Important Symbols Are in Influencing the Atmosphere in Prose. So guys, hope you like this video and sorry for any mistaken and happy watching.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. First of all, let us pray and praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because of His grace and mercy, we can come together without any obstacle with healthy condition. Second, let us greet and pray to our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who had brought us to the path of light. Alright, this national seminar will be divided in 3 sections. The first section is opening, the second section is the main lecture, and the third section is closing. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the seminar, let us open the seminar by praying together based on individual belief. Soon the event that we hold on this day will run well without any obstacle at all. So, praying based on individual belief begins. Done. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the main point, we will learn the details of the seminars. The theme of the national seminar is how to build atmosphere in her story. Then the main topic of the seminar is the introduction of prose fiction, the power of diction, setting, intrinsic element, and symbols to influence the atmosphere. We use one of Edgar Allan Poe's horror fiction, The Fall of the House of Usher, as the object of this seminar. The lectures will be delivered by 4 excellent speakers as follows. The first speaker is Fitri Wahyuni, the second speaker is Devi Fajar, the third speaker is Leni Nursinta, and then the last speaker is Fitri Nurfatimah. Alright, this lecture will start from the first speaker, Fitri Wahyuni. So please welcome with a round of applause for Mrs. Fitri Wahyuni. Time is yours. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. I hope everyone in a good condition. Alright, my pleasure to be here today in this national seminar with theme How to Build Atmosphere in Horror Story. And my name is Fitri Wahyuni. I'm from Yogyakarta State University. I will talk about introduction of prose fiction and some intrinsic elements in prose. And the object study of this lecture is The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Alright, we will start from the introduction of prose fiction. What is prose? Prose is a literary work which the characteristic on the daily language and the form is paragraph. Prose is divided into 2 categories, prose fiction and prose non-fiction. Prose fiction refers to literary work created from the writer's imagination, and prose non-fiction refers to literary work based on fact. And according to the survey on the internet, the most popular genre is prose fiction. Then some types in prose fiction are romance fiction, historical fiction, science fiction, and gothic fiction. Then a lot of kind of prose fiction which is very popular right now are short story, novel, and novella. Then the object study of this lecture is The Fall of the House of Usher, a short story by American writer Edgar Allan Poe, first published in 1839 in Barton's Gentleman magazine, and the genre of this short story is gothic fiction. Next, about the writers, Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was born on 19 January 1809 in Boston. He is the second son of actor Elizabeth Arnold and David Poe. Poe is an American short story writer, poet, critic, and editor who is famous because his ability to build atmosphere in the world. His well-known fiction are The Murder in the Rue Morgue, The Raven, and The Fall of the House of Usher. Poe regarded as an inventor of detective fiction and gothic fiction. He is also known as a central figure of Romanticism in the United States. Because his strong character, his work could influence literature in the whole world. Right now, everyone loves him and all his work. His work appear in literature, television, movies, media, and etc. After that, we will move to the intrinsic element of this short story. Intrinsic element are the basic element which could develop the literary work. Analyze intrinsic element in literary work will help us to enjoy the story better, and the purpose of this analysis is to clarify the element behind the story. Intrinsic elements are theme, setting, character, plot, point of view, style, and tone. Alright, the first intrinsic element is theme. In literature, theme is the main idea of the story. So, the major theme of the story is fear. Fear is an unpleasant emotion induced by a perceived threat. There are some quotations to prove the theme of fear, but with the first glimpse of the building instead of its true variables and so on, I have indeed no abhorrence of genre except if its absolute effect in terrors and so on. I feel creeping upon me by slow gesture tentacles and so on, and many more quotations. And another major theme of this story is madness. Madness is mental illness which could happen in person. In the short story, Roderick and Madeline were suffering from mental illness. The condition was a condition of depression, and we can see through a quotation below. The writer spoke of acute bodily illness of a mental disorder. The disease of the Lady Madeline had long baffled the skill of her physician and was obliged to resolve all into the mere inexplicable vagaries of madness, and many more quotations on the text. Next, to the setting. Setting is the time and place when the story happened. The first one is setting of time. In the short story, setting is used to convey image and build the mood of the story. The story happened during the whole of a dull, dark, and sunless day in the autumn of the year. It is proved by the quotation in the first paragraph. During the whole of a dull, dark, and the sunless day in the autumn of the year, where the cold hung oppressively long in the heaven, and so on. Then setting of place. The whole story also happened in the house of Usher. If we enjoy the story, we will understand about that. Here are some quotations to prove the setting of place. I have been passing along on horseback through a singularity track of a country and like I found myself in the shade of the evening tram on within the view of the melancholy house of Usher. Upon my entrance, user arose from a sofa on which he had been lying, and so on, and another quotation in the text. Next to the characters. In the fall of the house of Usher, there are some characters which has important roles. The first central character is the unnamed narrator. His role in this story is to narrate the story based on his perspective, and he is a childhood friend of Roderick. It can be seen in the quotation, I had been passing along, and so on. Start from the first paragraph, the story narrated from the narrator, and its proprietor, Roderick Usher, had been one of my boon companions in boyhood by many years, and so on. Explain that Roderick is his friend when childhood. Second major character in the story is Roderick Usher. He is the owner of the house when the story takes place, and he has a sister named Madeline. Usher has an illness and he tries to survive. He sent a letter to his friend which referring to the narrator to help him solve the problem. It is proved by the quotation. Explain why the writer sent the narrator a letter, and then explain the condition of the Roderick, and so on. Then the third character in the story is Madeline Answer. Madeline is the Roderick's sister. She has a disease and she makes a terror for her twin brother. We can see from this quotation the disease of the Lady Madeline had long baffled the skill of her physician. While we spoke, the Lady Madeline passed slowly through a remote portion and so on. Next to the plot, plots in the main sequence of events in the story. In plot, there are exposition, rising action, climax, failing action, and resolution. The first one is exposition. In this part, the writer tries to introduce the setting of time and place, the atmosphere, and also the character we can see from the first paragraph. Then rising action. Rising action are events that occur as a result of central topic. Here, Roderick tells the narrator about the death of his sister, and the narrator stays at Roderick's house to help him. However, in the next day, they get some terror and fear, such as the creepy sounds, terrible weather, and the Madeline appearance. Next to the climax. The climax is the highest point of interest. In the story, when a terrifying night begins, Roderick comes to the narrator's bedroom. Roderick hears a sound. He guesses that the sound from his sister. Roderick becomes hysterical and realizes that she was alive. Then the bedroom door is open. Madeline appears with blood upon her white robes, mourning cry. Then she will fall on her brother and pour him to the floor, a corpse. Then the following action, the narrator tries to escape from the house of Usher. He was so frightened at the night. In resolution, the house of Usher was fallen as the destruction of Usher family. Move to the point of view. Point of view is the writer's position in the story. In the fall of the house of Usher, Edgar Allan Poe uses the first-person point of view. It means a character from the story is telling from the story and characterized by the pronoun I. This point of view creates a close relation between the reader and the characters. Next to the mood and style. Mood is the tone which the writer tries to convey within the whole story. From the theme and plot, we could analyze that the mood is weird because the writer wants the reader to feel the frightened. Then the style of this story is a lot of figurative language and symbolism. There are some examples of figurative language. The pagan air like widow, the clouds hung oppressively low in the heaven, an air of strange deep and irredeemable gloom hung over and provided all and many more. Then some symbol in this story, weather such as rain, storm, and darkness, which expresses the creepy atmosphere. Then house of Usher, which in terrible condition, it expresses the condition of the Usher family, and the brook in the house as an ending, it expresses the death of Madeline and Usher. Alright, in conclusion, The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe is an incredible gothic fiction. Edgar Allan Poe is the best American writer which could build the atmosphere very well. From all intrinsic elements, the big idea in the story is fear. The intrinsic elements support the story become more interesting and the reader could enjoy the story better. However, some things which could build atmosphere in the story are setting, diction, and symbols. Alright, thank you for the time and thank you for the appreciation. I hope this explanation very useful for us. Thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for Wahyuni. It's very clear explanation and I hope it will be useful for us. The next IG lecture from the second speaker, Fajar Hidayah. For Devi Fajar Hidayah, time is yours.
Thank you to the moderator for the opportunity that has given to me to deliver the amazing material, which is quite crucial in a literary work, namely setting. As in Allan Poe's work entitled The Fall of the House of Usher. So, what is setting? Yeah, setting is something we often know, about its role to build an atmosphere and story. As the moderator said, there are two kinds of settings, namely time setting and place setting. But in here, we will discuss more deeply how settings are very influential in the story entitled The Fall of the House of Usher. So, take the first quotation, and the quotation is, during a world tour, dark and silent day in the fall of the year, when the clouds hang so low in the sky. In this sentence, we can conclude how great the setting in shaping of the reader's imagination. We can imagine how dark and how boring the situation is in this story. In here, the author emphasizes the setting of atmosphere that describes something so that the readers can build their own imagination about what is the author means. Besides that, the next setting is place setting, like in the quotation. Nevertheless, in this mention of gloom, I now propose myself of some mix. The depiction of place in this sentence show where the story takes place and gives the reader some insight. And the last setting is time setting. And now, tonight, alter the breaking of the hammock's door and the clangor of the shout. The time setting in the sentence is night. We can imagine how terrible that night with the banging of the door followed by the laugh of Patrick Usher. In here, we as the readers can feel what the author feels. So, from what I have explained before, we can conclude how the setting is important in shaping a story, just like when we know how the story takes place. With the two settings above, the story will more alive and the atmosphere will be awakened so that the reader will feel as if the reader is in the story. Besides that, the choice of diction will affect the atmosphere too. But this amazing material will be conveyed by the next speaker. And thank you very much for your attention, and glad to be here with the amazing people.
Thank you so much to Devi Fajar Hidayah for her lecture. Alright, the next agenda is the lecture from the third speaker, Leni Nursinta. Please welcome Leni Nursinta with a round of applause. For Leni Nursinta, time is yours.
Hello everyone, my name is Leni Nursinta, and this is the special occasion for me to be here in front of you. Well, our first speaker has explained to us about the influence of the setting in building the atmosphere in Edgar Allan Poe's prose, The Fall of the House of Usher. And now, I will also explain to you about one of the important elements in building the atmosphere, that is diction. Apart from his typical setting, Edgar Allan Poe is also famous with his excellent skill in determining diction. When he wants to build an atmosphere in his prose, he tries his best so that the reader gets the clear depiction of the plot and feelings in the story. Different from the other writer, he is very good at creating horror story. First things first, before I convey the point of this topic, you should know what is diction actually. So, diction is the careful selection of words to communicate a message or establish a particular voice or writing style. From the story entitled The Fall of the House of Usher, we will be faced with the diction, which requires our extra understanding to understand the whole of the story. Because the diction that Edgar Allan Poe used in this story is very old, very ancient, we will need our dictionary beside us so that every time we are confused with the vocabulary, then we can immediately find out in our dictionary. Another option that can be done is to guess the meaning of the vocabulary. Like a haunted house where all the rooms in it are terrible, Edgar Allan Poe always managed to describe every part in his story with the same portion. He gives a horror impression in all of the part of his story, from the opening to the end of the story, that can even make the reader wonder, can this story actually happen in the real world? Why do I seem to enter the atmosphere of the story? In the first paragraph, Edgar Allan Poe describes how gloomy and terrible the setting of the story that is portrayed in the prose. It can be seen from the use of words to support the atmosphere of the story that he is trying to compose. The words like dull, dark, soundlessly, dreary, insufferable gloom, desolate, terrible, bleak, and vacant, which all contain negative meanings, which build an atmosphere around the character I that is gripping and thrilling. Edgar Allan Poe also uses a very good word choice to describe how the character I feels at the beginning of the story with explicit descriptions, such as in the words like iciness, sinking, and the sickening of the heart. Here, Edgar Allan Poe makes clear about the feeling of the character I is filled with a fear or something that sounds and feels like that. The diction that Edgar Allan Poe uses is very different. Every sentence contains the vocabulary that is probably still very strange for most people, especially for non-native English speaker or people in this era, or let's say millennials. Since the diction is quite ancient, it is no wonder that this story was written in 1839, even long ago before our grandparents were born. In conclusion, diction plays an important role in building an atmosphere in the story, and Edgar Allan Poe can make it well. I think that's all that I can explain. Thank you everyone for your attention.
Thanks to Leni Nursinta for the information and knowledge which have been given to us. The next agenda is the last lecture from Fitri Nurfatimah. Alright, for Fitri Nurfatimah, time and place are yours.
Hello everyone, what a wonderful opportunity for being here and for having you all here. As we know, the theme of today's seminar is the atmosphere of the story of the fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. The previous speakers have explained about the atmosphere building elements in this story, such as diction and setting. Now, on this occasion, I will talk about the symbolic elements in the story that affect the atmosphere. As we know that Edgar built a mysterious, silent, dark, melancholy, and mystical atmosphere in this story. Edgar used symbolism, a literary technique where an object, person, or concept represents something else, especially in the fall of the house of Usher. Edgar used several symbols in the story that have an important role so that the story is alive and can be felt by the readers. Okay, the first symbol is the eye. It's very common for us. We can guess what someone feels through his eyes. A simple, they are happy or not. We can see that when Madeline died, the light in Roderick's eyes was gone, indicating that his mood had changed. From here, the eye is symbol of emotion or hurt in this story. Eye was mentioned several times in this story, as we know that the eye is the sense to see. By analogy, we will know everything by seeing. Likewise, this story. The eye become a medium for emotional communication among the characters. A mysterious atmosphere awakened through this symbol. The characters in this story are not very talkative, but the reader can capture the condition and what they feel through their eyes. And then the next symbol is the house of Usher family. The Usher mansion is the most important symbol in this story, isolated, decayed, and full of the atmosphere of death. The house represents the dying Usher family itself. Plague walls, vacant like windows, and minute fungi overspread on the whole exterior. And the interior of the house is equally dreary with folded and fritted ceilings, dark draperies hung upon the walls, and furniture that is comfortless, antique, and tattered. The family seems isolated. The occupants have mental and physical illness. We can say that the house is a mirror of the Usher family. The creepy condition of the house with its mysterious occupants is enough to make readers ask whether the Usher family is human. And the last symbol is the characters in this story, Roderick Usher and Madeline Usher. In the story, Roderick has mental illness and often felt afraid, while Madeline has a physical illness that even doctors cannot cure until finally she died. What can we conclude from this? The two characters are a symbol that humans live by creating a balance between body, soul, mind, and heart. Otherwise, one of them will destroy us. In addition, the relationship between these two characters as twins also has a symbol. When Madeline was sick, Roderick was very afraid of losing his sister. Madeline's death made Roderick was very sad until finally Roderick died with his sister. A sad and gloomy atmosphere was depicted with these twins. They have flaws, but they survive to live a tough life until they die together. Humans cannot live alone. People need each other's existence to live. In conclusion, Edgar can build the atmosphere implicitly through the symbols in this story. However, readers often don't pay attention to this symbol, even though these represent important things in this story. If the readers understand the meaning of the symbol in the story, the atmosphere given by the other will be felt. That is what makes a story live. I think that's all for me. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks to Fitri Nurfatimah. The explanation is really wonderful. Alright, according to the lecture, we can conclude that the short story, The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, is an incredible work. The big idea in the story is fear. Then the intrinsic element could build the story and the reader could feel the atmosphere. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, finally we get to the last section in this event, that is closing. Let's close this event by praying together. Praying begins. done. Thank you. Thanks to Wahyuni, Devi, Fajar, Hidayah, Leni Nursinta, and Fitri Nurfatimah as a speaker in this national seminar and the audience entirely. We hope the seminar gives us knowledge, relation, and useful information. I'm Yuna as a moderator in this national seminar. Please forgive me if I make many mistakes. Thank you and see you in another time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.